What is going on, you guys? It's your boy Average Bob, and in today's video, we're going to talk about the Week 2 matchup between the Dallas Cowboys and the New York Giants. And to be completely honest with you guys, this is probably like the lowest I feel like of the lows as a Giants fan that I can remember in quite some time, right? Just going into this match, I'll talk about this matchup, but I do want to close the loop on what happened last week in terms of just everything from what we saw on the field and with what the Giants were able to accomplish offensively, which was pretty much nothing. Sorry, I'm just trying to look and see if I can add something here, but no worries. The Giants were able to do nothing offensively. The defense didn't look as bad, but as it kind of looked on paper, should have been way worse. Especially when you were watching the Commanders look pretty lackadaisical, not that great last night. Maybe the Packers are really super. They're gonna have a great season this year, and the Commanders just beat the crap out of a Giants team that is pretty much lifeless. But let's get started by talking about where we go from week 1 to week 2. Everything offense, defense, special teams in week 1 looked pretty horrendous. I'm not quite sure, even watching film, like everyone seemed pretty dejected. You lost a starting middle linebacker. Guys just aren't in good shape. Russell, the offensive line still is terrible. It's just kind of like, what has this front office been doing for the last, since February, since the free agency started, since the draft started? Like, talk about the offensive line. They brought in Hudson, who looked pretty bad and had penalties and didn't look great. And you also drafted Embo, who honestly, looked horrendous, but everyone talked about how great he was during the preseason because he had a couple of good plays in the preseason. But it's like, got into the game, they tried to throw a pass to him, like, what are we doing here? And then he got beat across his face and almost knocked out by Cam Scatabo. So leaving week 1 where week 1 was, that was as bad of a performance and disheartening as a fan that I could remember in such a long time. Because nothing had changed, right? And I had a gut feeling deep in my stomach the second it was 3rd and 11, and they ran a screen to Wandell. I got about 2 yards. I knew this was nothing had changed. The offensive line, Russell Wilson stood in the pocket, got his ass kicked over and over again, which is why the last 2 seasons you've seen 9 quarterbacks play. Russell Wilson's the ninth quarterback to play. So their start, I don't know, it just seems so disheartening. And if they don't figure it out this week versus the Cowboys, because now you're going into Jerry's world. The Cowboys, did have a little bit of a resurgence at the end of their last game, but they traded their best player Parsons to the Packers, who looked great last night. And this offense, the Cowboys offense isn't, the issue here. So the Giants, to talk about this matchup coming up. Sorry, my brain's in a million different pieces and want to do this, give you guys good content, but there's just a lot going on over here on the home front and just everything else. But to talk about this upcoming matchup between the Dallas Cowboys and the New York Giants, what can the Giants do to get Russell Wilson going? Literally against the Commanders on the road, they couldn't do anything. You had 7 or 8 chances in the red zone from about the 10-yard line and in, came away with 3 points there. Everything just looked pretty, just overall terrible from across the board. No playmakers. You're forcing it to Malik Neighbors over and over and over. Neighbors also is fighting and drawing with Dable on the sideline. And I get it. We're passionate. We care about being passionate, blah, blah, blah. But like, then to start the second half, Neighbors gets the first down on a slant and you're down 2 scores and you're like celebrating first down signs. Like, I don't know what the future is going forward with this team, what they were looking to accomplish from a cultural standpoint. Everything that anyone that celebrated the 3-0 preseason, I don't even know where the hell they're at now because week 1 looked so bad. And usually when I do these videos against the Cowboys, I could find holes and path to victory. I don't see that this week in week 2. The Cowboys are super pissed off. They lost in week 1. They're super pissed off that their best player was kind of traded and ripped apart their culture a little bit. And they have a perfect game to get right in week 2 versus the Giants that have been just beyond lifeless. And if you have Dak Prescott has shown, if you turn games into high-powered offensive shootouts, he can ultimately come out successful. He can throw for 300 yards on you and have a couple touchdowns, maybe run one in two. And I know that the Cowboys have had some problems. They really haven't addressed their running game. Their offensive line is kind of like a work in progress because they had so many guys leave over the last few years, but they still have a stud wide receiver in CD Lamb. Dak Prescott, although he might not have the playoff numbers to back it up where he's crashed there, he still is 12. I think he in his last 13 games versus the Giants, he's 12-13 and has won 8 straight. I don't see that changing over this weekend because of how bad the Giants look in week one. It really comes down to this weekend, can the Giants offense literally do anything to get any momentum, score a touchdown, get on the board? If it's 4th and 1, like you're just going to have to go for it from the 50-yard line in because punting just isn't sustainable at this point. And why would you even risk punting with Jamie Gillen, who's just going to literally boot it into the end zone or kick it 20 yards? It just isn't a sustainable way to win and grow. And if Russell Wilson looks like shit, I don't know. Maybe you'll have to go to Jamus. At least with Jamus, he'll stand there and throw it. He might throw 3 interceptions, but he also might throw 3 touchdowns. And that's something this offense needs is touchdowns. The most worst part about what's happened was just it felt, and I am so guilty of buying into the hype of what they did over this offseason and how they look, right? You draft Abdul Carter 3 overall. How many snaps did he play on defense? He's on punt. He's trying to block punts. Okay, well, guess what? You just burned that in a game you lost in week one. So now other teams are just going to take that completely away. He's never going to block another punt this season. And all of these guys just aren't in good football shape. Dexter coming off of the elbow surgery from last year, like wanted to see more of him. All of those guys just aren't on the field that much together. They're rotating them for the length of a season, and I kind of get that. But it's also like there might not be a season left in a couple weeks with how tough this schedule is because right now you have Cowboys in Jerry's world, Chiefs at home, Chargers at home, Saints on the road, which New Orleans is a tough place to play. They're not very good, but neither are we. They could beat us easily. And then if you lose that game, you're really in dire straits. And I don't know what the future is. And I don't see Brian Dable getting through the season or Joe Shane. So who knows? Maybe Russell Wilson has a terrible first half. They go to Jameis or they go to Dart. But behind this offensive line, do you want to go to Jackson Dart this early when the offensive line can't even pick up basic 4-man stunts? That could actually crush him. And that's something that the Jets have been guilty of. They were guilty of with Chino, Sam Darnold, Zach Wilson. They put these guys behind shitty offensive lines with minor weapons, no rushing attack, and they get crushed. I think the Giants are currently set up a little bit better, but yeah, just everything with this offense, these offensive gurus, Brian Dable, Mike Kafka, doesn't matter who's calling the plays, looks all the same. And it's not good. So I wish I had a little bit more to be optimistic about. Usually I do a well-crafted video for this, but I just think from a timing perspective, a mental perspective, and everything else, I just don't see the Giants' path to victory in this game in Jerry's world. Maybe Russell Wilson does something like I don't know. Like we just have to see it, and we haven't seen it up until this point. And I don't know if we will see it this weekend, but in the modern NFL in 2025, when you can't score touchdowns, you can't move the ball down the field, like you're not going to be successful. Like look at all these other games. You watch the Bills Ravens game, looks like a completely different sport from watching the Giants play. They're putting up 40 points a game. They're doing whatever they want. And their defenses aren't even that bad either, but it's like, man, oh man, are the Giants in trouble? And if this last season, right? Or 2 seasons ago, started 40-0 versus the Cowboys. What's to say that's not going to happen again now? I don't know, man. I wish I was a little bit more positive and optimistic than I am, but the way the last week has gone, and the way that the Giants week one has gone, the thing of optimism is just completely left for myself. And maybe I was dumb for even being optimistic about the culture shift, bringing in guys, because nothing looks like it's changed whatsoever. Everything looks the same. Offensive line got to be like year 15 of looking terrible. Um, I don't know. I don't know what the future is. The Giants are getting 5.5 points there. I'm not even remotely touching this. And I feel like I would always take them, but I don't know. Hopefully, we're singing a different tune Sunday afternoon when I'm doing a recap video for you guys. But right now, this is as bad as I think I've ever. I could just feel like a total dejected Giants fan right now. And it's funny because I'm standing here and then look what's just looking me in the eyes. Just Super Bowl champion DVD. Might have to throw that on to remember some of the good times because right now, I don't know when they're going to start again. Doesn't seem like anytime soon. And it doesn't seem like these guys are the guys to do it. And it's just going to suck if you trade it up to get Jackson Dart and Dable isn't your guy because there's just going to be so much pressure. He has to start winning now. You can't go on year 3 of punting full other seasons because you're wasting guys' primes. You're wasting money. I don't know. I wish I had more better things to say, but everything's kind of just leaning in the direction of, you know, we're just going to have to wait and see because clearly the front office has no answers. Clearly the coaching staff has no answers. Besides, I'll look at the tape. I'll look at the tape. Well, we've all looked at the tape. We've all looked at the games, and it looks bad. Have a great day, y'all.